The Player, Episode 7, A House is Not a Home. Now, unfortunately, I kind of have to start this review off by saying that The Player has officially been canceled. Um, they took the show down to, I believe, 9 episodes, so we technically only have 2 more to go. I found this out very recently. My girlfriend actually told me, and I had no idea. But the show has been canceled. They are going to let it, kind of end its run. I don't exactly know how they're gonna do that. I don't know if they're gonna like just wrap it up quickly. Hopefully they would, because now that they know they're canceled, maybe they'll let them do maybe an extra episode or something. Even though they cut it down to 9 episodes for the season, maybe they'll let them do something and let them work out an ending. But unfortunately, the show is canceled. So if you're a fan like me, we sadly lost the show. It sucks even more for me because I really wanted the main character to have a new show because he's on the old show Strike Back, and I love that show. Both main cast members, Philip Winchester and Sullivan Stapleton, they're on separate shows, and Philip Winchester is our main character Alex in this show, and Sullivan Stapleton is the main character Kurt Weller in the show Blind Spot. So Blind Spot is doing pretty great. That's gotten like they've ordered, back end of extra episodes and everything. It's kind of like the total opposite. So Blind Spot is fine. Unfortunately, though, The Player did get canceled, and that really sucks. I thought this was a great show. Love the action, love, the crazy mysteries and intrigue, but wanted to start off by saying that just to let you guys know so it doesn't just, like, vanish and, you don't know until, you see one of the characters on, like, a brand new TV show. But it did, unfortunately, get canceled recently, and so it's going to be ending very, very soon since they cut it down to only 9 episodes. But this was yet another pretty fun episode. It's actually a very interesting one. Not only did we get a fairly amazing ending, like, I think the best stuff for sure in this episode was revolved around Mr. Johnson and Cassandra, because the stuff with Cassandra was like, okay, she's taking more steps to find out what happened with Jenny, and then she actually does find this home. She finds this house at the end of the episode where someone was at, because there was tea, sitting on the stove, and it was whistling and everything. And maybe that person just, took off when she, opened the door up, or maybe when she actually took it off the kettle, which I certainly wouldn't have done, because that would have let people know, like, oh, there's someone else in the house. And it seemed, considering it was completely empty, I would assume there was only one, maybe 2 people actually in there. It wasn't like, because it seemed like almost like a boarding house a little bit, because there were like bunk beds, and then there was another bed, and I think in the room with bunk beds there were like 2 sets of bunk beds or something like that. So it seemed like it was a house where there were quite a few people, and then it was completely abandoned. So I'm not 100% sure what to kind of expect from that, but I certainly loved it. I thought, like, that's a cool ending. And then the stuff with Mr. Johnson was like totally insane, because he meets his buddy, and it's like, oh, okay, this woman's protected. Fairly simple. A couple of issues. Things are getting a little weird. Trying to make it work and figure out, what can I do to stop this investigation. He's meeting an old buddy. It's like, all right, he gets this random note. He goes to this church, and it's like, oh, he thinks that he just invited him to, come meet him at this church for like a secret little meeting or whatever. And then he turns, and we see that this guy had his Samuel Letts. I don't know why I remember that name. But we find out that he actually had his throat cut, and he was killed, and that message was sent, to Mr. Johnson for whatever reason. Like, I don't know what the reason is. We don't know who it is, and they know who Mr. Johnson is. They know where to find him. They know how to get to him. They know who to kill to, make things matter to him and to really affect him as a person. And I love that. I was like, this is very interesting, because they've kind of just been like the omnipotent characters. Like Mr. Johnson and Cassandra is like, the pit boss, the dealer, and then you have Alex, who's like in all the danger. And they're just like doing their own thing. It's like Mr. Johnson's looking for Jenny to help Alex, and then Cassandra's looking for Jenny, kind of on her own as well. And it was like, okay, that in itself was cool enough, because Mr. Johnson was already hiding things and stuff like that from all the info he got from the little SD card. So that was simple enough. It was like, alright, weird little mysteries going on. And then we get this ending where he's being threatened by someone. We don't know who. And he even talks to Cassandra like, look, I don't, you don't have to lie to me. I know exactly what you're doing. And I just need to know that, you're really on the same team as me. Like, we're on the same team. I know you don't trust me, and Let's even told me not to really trust you, but I do. And I just need to know that you're with me. And the answer she gave didn't seem 100%. She was just kind of like, of course. And it seemed like she was still trying to kind of hide the fact that she was doing something secret. And even if she was busted, obviously he wouldn't know, like, exactly that she's, like, in a house right now looking for Jenny. He just knows that it's something else that she's looking into. And I'm wondering if he knows that she's looking for Jenny. I don't feel like he does. I think he just knows that there's something else. Excuse me. And he probably thinks that she's trying to look into something involving him, maybe. And so that's kind of what he's worried about. And that's why he really needs to know, who's really on his side. But that was my favorite part about this episode. Just someone actually getting to Johnson is not what I was expecting. I don't think I was expecting that at all, to be totally honest. If that was the thing, if the show would have gotten like a season 2 then I would have kind of seen that coming, like where now we get the threats to the game itself. But we got it fairly early on, and I thought, like, that's actually really cool. And now there's this secret looming threat going on. We don't know if it's other players or, any of the gamblers or just other people that were formerly involved in the organization or how any of this is playing out. But it was a great setup, I thought. And the main case itself was fairly interesting. It was kind of a guy really just kind of being like a vigilante who wanted help for all the families that were kind of destroyed. And I was like, that's actually, it sucks because, of course, it's like, they can't let him kill this guy, and they don't. But I think they do end it in kind of the coolest way possible, where it's like they save the guy who is a total dick, and obviously, like the guy mentioned, he isn't really the only person, but definitely, like, the face of it, and definitely a huge part of it. So it was like, okay, they save the guy at the end, and yet they blow up his house. Like, okay, well, these bombs are totally still set up in there. Well, we'll just, flip this switch and hit a button, and boom, there goes your house. People have to pay for the things that they've done. And I was like, it's kind of cool that they did that. It's not the same, obviously, for the guy in the back of the car. It's not the same as him getting his ultimate revenge and killing this guy off. But it was a nice little ending. I was like, okay, they had to save, the really bad guy, but they do blow up his insanely giant, expensive house. I was like, that's really nice. That was a cool. That was a nice little workaround for an ending where it's like, oh, the bad guy, got away. It's not like the worst thing. Obviously, we've had like full on terrorists and murderers. So him like taking money from families and kind of making them homeless really, really sucks. But he's not like directly just doing like full on terrorist attacks or just assaulting and murdering people and stuff like that. So not the worst person. And he, of course, did not get the worst ending for any of, like, our, kind of villain characters. Because the person that Alex had to stop really wasn't the bad guy in this episode. He was doing bad things. But, in the grand scheme, he really wasn't the bad guy. He was the one trying to, get revenge for all those other families. It wasn't even just his family. It's, like, for all the families that you guys have completely screwed over and, taken money from and homes from. This is for them. So I like that. And even the scene where the guy, I think it was probably the coolest scene that he had when he's like, this is your last chance. You either shoot me and live or you die. And he actually, picks up the gun and tries to kill him. And he was like, now you see how it feels. Like, like you never even had a chance. And so now you understand what it's like thinking you had an opportunity and knowing that it was never there to begin with. And I was like, that was actually like almost an evil genius type moment. I was like, that was actually really cool and just a psychological thing. And I knew there wouldn't be bullets in it. I was like, either there's no bullets, or it would just be like blanks or something. But I was like, I'm sure it's not going to have anything in it because he knows ultimately, who this guy really is. So it's like, of course you're going to do that. Like anyone would. I mean, it wouldn't matter. You wouldn't want to die. You kill the other person unless it's, you were just one of those characters where you were like, felt so guilty you wanted to be killed for it. But I liked it. I thought it was a fun mission. It was very interesting, like a nice little twist on it where, like I said, the person Alex had to stop really wasn't the worst person involved. So that was fun. Like, it was a nice little episode. Action was pretty entertaining. You know, them having to run around and figure like who is he going after next, exactly who is it? You know, that's the bomber. The explosion that happened where Alex had to um, save the one woman off the elevator and stuff, and Cassandra was like, you know, just leave her and stuff like that. That was an interesting scene because it's like him as the good character, and Cassandra's like, oh, you know, screw it, just leave her. I'm gonna drop this elevator, and you know, people will be fine. And that was an interesting little moment. I was like, holy crap, she was like, screw this woman, you know, stop this guy and just in the game right now. And I like that scene. And then of course the whole cover up that they had to pull, and he's like taking a woman out, like carrying her in his arms and stuff, and so Cassandra has to like block all of the communications, and they can't record any footage of Alex and stuff like that. He takes off and has to jump back into the blown up building and all this craziness. So he's running around, people coming after him. Um, and then Mr. Johnson ends up having to save him. He's jumping off of, jumping over police cars and stuff, and he dives in. The only thing I didn't like about that scene is that they didn't fire a single shot at the cars. And I understand if it was like, oh, we gotta shoot this guy. But it was like not a single shot was fired. Like they were chasing him, but nothing whatsoever happened. Like they didn't shoot a single bullet or even remotely try. And I was like, that was a little weird. Like even when he got in the car, they weren't like shoot at the car at least. It was just like nothing. And I was like, that was a little weird to me that they only chased him. And that's like a TV thing where it happens all the time. But it just felt a little weird that there were so many people coming after him, and it was like not a single bullet was used, even when they were both just sitting in the car and about to take off. Like, all right, everyone is clear, because all the civilians are like off to the right of all the SWAT members. It was like they could shoot across, this little parking structure and try to at least hit the car, and it was like nothing whatsoever. I was like, that was a little weird, but I still love the scene because he was like jumping off of police cars and like jumping through people and stuff like that. I was like, that's actually pretty awesome, like a nice little suspenseful action scene. But it was a fun episode. News really sucks, but I'm gonna enjoy these last couple, while I can, of course. But I want to know what you guys thought about this episode, so please comment below. Let me know your favorite parts, your least favorite parts. And I want to know what you guys think about this assault on Mr. Johnson and the game as a whole. Like, what are your, if you have any speculations, if you guys think it might be former players, if the, I doubt that would be the case, because I feel like in the scene where they're talking about how Mr. Johnson used to be like, he was like the number one player, and every player becomes a pit boss, or every pit boss was a player, but not every player becomes a pit boss. I feel like they would have thrown in like the smallest hint, like there are like a couple, or there's like at least one or two, which is technically a couple, but there's like, maybe one person who was a player and didn't become a pit boss, and that would have been like a nice little, really subtle, quick hint as to who could have been attacking him. But at this point, it's like, it's probably just someone he knew in his past, or it's someone he kind of messed with through the game, or it's just one of the gamblers for some reason. That could be the case. But I want to know your speculations, so like I said, please comment below, let me know, and thanks for watching.